It was a Wednesday afternoon when I realized I was shrinking. I was sitting across from someone I had known for years. Someone I had once trusted with my rawest fears and my loudest dreams. And yet, in that moment, my voice was quiet. My shoulders were tense. I laughed at things that weren't funny. I nodded when my gut was screaming no. I was disappearing in real time, and the most painful part was I was doing it to keep the peace. You know that feeling, don't you? That subtle erosion of self that happens when you're around someone who doesn't see you, respect you, or care about your emotional safety. That person might be a friend, a partner, a coworker, even a family member. And somehow, you keep showing up. Not because it feels good, but because you don't want to be the one who gave up. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the smartest way to deal with toxic people, not with revenge, not with rage, but with rooted, soulful wisdom. If this message stirs something honest and human in you, take a moment, like, subscribe, comment, and share. Let's keep showing up together for the kind of conversations that really matter. Toxicity doesn't always announce itself like a thunderstorm. It doesn't always slam doors or shout across the room. Sometimes it whispers. It shows up wearing a smile. It blends in with the people we trust, the voices we listen to, the ones we've known for so long we stop questioning their behavior. And that's what makes it so disorienting. The truth is, some of the most toxic experiences we ever have don't happen in abusive explosions. They happen in quiet, everyday moments. Moments where our spirit flinches, but we keep the conversation going. Moments where we feel the sting of disrespect disguised as just being honest, or a joke that hits a little too close to our insecurities, and yet we laugh along because we don't want to seem too sensitive. We tell ourselves, maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I need to be more understanding. And just like that, we begin to minimize our own emotional truth. We trade clarity for confusion. We override our own instincts to keep the peace. But let me tell you something powerful. And I say this with love. Your nervous system is wise. Your body knows. That pit in your stomach, that tension in your jaw, that sigh of relief when they finally leave the room, that's not drama. That's data. It's feedback from your emotional ecosystem telling you this connection doesn't feel safe. Emotionally intelligent people, truly smart people, truly dominant women, truly smart people don't ignore that data. They don't wait until the damage is irreversible. They don't wait for someone to raise their voice to decide something is harmful. They notice the subtle shifts. They notice when their energy contracts. They notice when their laughter feels forced. They notice the moments they begin to abandon themselves in order to belong. Because here's the quiet truth nobody really teaches us. Being in someone's presence should not feel like emotional labor. You shouldn't have to audition for kindness. You shouldn't have to tiptoe around someone's ego to feel worthy of being treated with basic respect. Smart doesn't mean tolerating everything. Smart means discerning the difference between someone having a bad day and someone being a pattern of harm in your life. Toxic people don't always look toxic. Sometimes they're the ones others admire. Sometimes they do kind things. Sometimes they show up with gifts or favors or apologies, and that's what confuses us. But a moment of kindness doesn't erase a pattern of harm, and being nice occasionally isn't the same thing as being consistently safe. So, the next time you find yourself second-guessing your discomfort, I want you to remember this. Your feelings are not inconvenient. They're not overreactions. They are your inner truth trying to speak louder than the noise around you. And the smartest way to honor that truth isn't to dismiss it. It's to trust it, even when it's inconvenient, even when it costs you a relationship, even when others don't understand. Because peace isn't found in pleasing everyone. It's found in not abandoning yourself in the process. One of the most liberating truths we will ever learn is this. We are allowed to protect our peace without giving a full explanation. But for many of us, that doesn't come naturally. We're taught, explicitly or subtly, that we must justify our boundaries, that we need to make our discomfort palatable. That if we're going to say no, it better come with a thesis statement, a detailed emotional resume, and 3 examples of previous trauma just to make it acceptable. If we're going to say no, we must positively state our boundary statements and then very empathically tell it to all of the women whose feet, and that's especially true when we're dealing with toxic people who've gotten used to us being emotionally available, on demand, always accessible, always agreeable. The moment we start to change, to shift, to speak up, they question it, they challenge it, they demand clarity. Why are you acting different? Why are you being distant? Don't you trust me anymore? And in that moment, it's easy to start unraveling, to fall back into old habits of over-explaining ourselves just to avoid conflict or guilt. But here's a bold truth that emotionally intelligent people eventually learn. You don't need a traumatic backstory to validate your boundary. You don't need to be falling apart to decide something is no longer healthy for you. Discomfort is reason enough. A lack of safety is reason enough. Exhaustion is reason enough. You are allowed to walk away from situations that disturb your peace, even if they don't disturb anyone else's. I remember once saying to someone, you are allowed. I'm resisting saying this. I don't feel good when I'm around you anymore. It was one of the hardest sentences I've ever spoken. Not because it wasn't true, but because I had been trained to prioritize their comfort over my clarity. But I knew I couldn't keep betraying myself just to keep someone else from feeling rejected. There is a quiet kind of courage in choosing yourself, especially in relationships where you've always been the emotional caretaker. There's a radical shift that happens when you stop performing emotional labor just to maintain a connection. We often confuse kindness with self-abandonment. We think we're being good or loyal by tolerating behavior that drains us. But loyalty that costs you your self-worth is not loyalty, it's martyrdom. And the price is too high. Setting boundaries doesn't make you cold or closed off. It means you've learned the difference between love and obligation, between connection and control, between compromise and codependency. When you begin to assert your boundaries, expect resistance, especially from the people who benefited from your lack of them. But don't let that resistance confuse you. That's not a sign to back down. That's a sign you're finally standing up. And remember, silence is a valid boundary. Distance is a valid boundary. Blocking someone is a valid boundary. Choosing not to reply is a valid boundary. You do not owe anyone emotional accessibility at the expense of your mental well-being. You are not unkind for refusing to be a dumping ground for someone else's chaos. You are not selfish for wanting peace. You are not dramatic for needing space. You are wise enough to know that your energy is sacred and strong enough to protect it, even when others don't understand. You don't need to defend your peace like it's a courtroom argument. You just need to honor it like it's your home. And when you start doing that, quietly, consistently, without drama, something beautiful happens. You begin to feel safe in your own skin again. You begin to feel at home within yourself. And that feeling, that's the beginning of true emotional freedom. There's something incredibly complex and tender about caring for someone who continues to hurt you. Maybe they're a parent who never learned how to love gently. Maybe they're a friend who's been through so much pain that all they know how to do is project it. Maybe it's a partner who had good intentions once, but got stuck in their own emotional patterns. And even after all the red flags, you still see their humanity. You still hope for their healing. You still wonder if maybe, just maybe, they'll change if you just love them hard enough, wait long enough, or forgive them one more time. That hope, it's beautiful. It speaks to your heart. It speaks to your empathy, your loyalty, your depth. But here's the bold, brave truth we all have to face at some point in our lives. Having compassion for someone's struggle doesn't mean you have to stay in the blast zone of their behavior. You can care about someone's trauma and still say, I will not allow that trauma to become my prison. You can understand why they act the way they do and still recognize that you are not their emotional rehabilitation center. You can pray for their growth without offering your peace as payment. So many of us stay entangled in toxic relationships because we've confused compassion with proximity. We think that in order to be kind, we have to stay close. But true compassion doesn't require constant access. It doesn't require sacrificing your safety. It doesn't require enduring emotional whiplash in the name of being there for someone. And I want to be clear, this isn't about giving up on people. It's about giving up the illusion that you are the one who can fix them. You are not their therapist. You are not their punching bag. You are not their emotional sponge meant to absorb their rage, their chaos, their emptiness just so they feel a little lighter. You can love them deeply and still walk away. You can wish them healing and still wish them goodbye. And that doesn't make you heartless. It makes you wise. I once held on to someone far too long because I kept telling myself, they're trying. And sometimes they were. But the trying always came after the damage. The apology came after the disrespect. The sweetness came after the storm. And slowly, my nervous system stopped trusting any calm moment because I was constantly bracing for the next emotional earthquake. That is not love. That is not safety. That is survival mode masquerading as loyalty. And survival mode will convince you that tolerating pain is strength, that staying is noble, that abandoning yourself for someone else is just the cost of being a good person. But hear me, real love, healthy love, does not require you to live in emotional poverty. It does not ask you to be less just so someone else can feel like more. It doesn't ask you to shrink, apologize, or twist yourself into a version that's easier for them to deal with. Compassion can say, I see your pain, but I will not let it spill into my life. Compassion can say, I want the best for you, but not at the cost of the best in me. Compassion can love someone from a distance, and that kind of love is sometimes the most honest and courageous of all. Because choosing your peace in the presence of pain isn't selfish. It's sacred. You do not need to be swallowed by someone else's storm to prove your heart is big enough. You're allowed to take shelter. You're allowed to create space. You're allowed to choose yourself. And when you do, you're not just protecting your future, you're modeling what healing looks like. You become the mirror they might one day look into and say, maybe I need to grow too. But even if they never do, you chose to grow anyway. And that, my friend, is the beginning of real emotional power. There comes a moment, often after years of emotional exhaustion, when you realize that not every battle is worth fighting. Not every attack deserves a response. Not every lie needs to be corrected. And not every toxic person deserves access to your energy. This is one of the most difficult lessons we ever learn, especially if we're wired to explain, to defend, to prove our truth. When you've been mistreated or misunderstood, every part of you wants to scream, that's not what happened. You're twisting it. You're not being fair. And sometimes it is unfair, it is manipulative, it is deeply hurtful. But here's the hard-won wisdom emotionally intelligent people come to live by. You do not have to set yourself on fire to make someone else see the light. Because the more you react to toxic people, the more they control the story. The more you try to reason with them, the more they twist your words. The more you argue, the more fuel you give their fire. And slowly, you stop living in your own emotional home. You start living in their chaos, in their story, in their reality. And that's where you begin to lose yourself. What I've learned, sometimes painfully, is that silence is not weakness. Silence is not retreat. Silence is power. It's choosing to no longer play a game that was rigged from the start. Toxic people want your reaction. That's the oxygen to their fire. They crave the drama, the defensiveness, the endless explaining, because it keeps the spotlight off of them and puts it on your response. And the moment you take your energy back, the moment you choose peace over performance, is the moment you start reclaiming your power. I remember the first time I didn't reply. It was a message laced with manipulation, sugar-coated with just enough guilt to make me feel like the villain if I didn't respond. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Every part of me wanted to explain, to correct the narrative, to defend my side. But then I paused and asked myself, what do I gain by responding? The truth? Nothing. Not clarity, not closure, not change. So I closed the message, took a deep breath, and walked away, and the quiet that followed, it was deafening at first. It felt like failure, like surrender. But slowly, that silence became my sanctuary. It became the space where I remembered who I was, where I no longer needed to be right. I just needed to be well. Because here's what we often forget. You are not responsible for managing how someone responds to your boundaries. You are only responsible for honoring them. You are allowed to disengage without guilt. You are allowed to walk away without a dramatic finale. You are allowed to protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. Choosing silence doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're growing up. It means you've realized your energy is too valuable to waste on someone who's only committed to misunderstanding you. It means you've decided that your healing is more important than being heard by someone who never listened to begin with. And in that silence, you'll find your voice again. Not the voice that pleads or explains or begs for validation, but the voice that stands calmly, clearly, and confidently in truth. So the next time you're tempted to reply, to argue, to fix the narrative, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, is this worth my peace, or is this costing me my peace? And if it's the latter, let your silence be your strength. Let your stillness be your boundary. Let your calm be your answer. Because sometimes the wisest thing you'll ever say is nothing at all. At some point, if you're really healing, really growing, there comes a day when you realize you have to let them go. Not because you stopped caring, not because you're bitter, not because you didn't try hard enough, but because you finally understand that carrying them any further will cost you yourself. And letting go, it doesn't always look like slamming a door. It doesn't always look like a dramatic goodbye. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a slow fade. Sometimes it's simply not calling back, not replying, not chasing after closure that was never going to come. It's one of the hardest things in the world to let go of someone you once prayed would stay. But there's a sacred kind of wisdom in knowing when a connection no longer serves your healing, when someone's presence in your life is more about history than harmony, when the idea of who they could be is keeping you from accepting who they actually are. Letting go isn't failure. It's freedom. It's the moment you stop trying to edit someone else's story and start writing your own with truth and integrity. Because the longer you hold on to someone who consistently chips away at your worth, the more you begin to believe that you deserve the chipping. You get used to the splinters. You normalize the emotional bruises. You learn to carry someone else's chaos like it's your burden to bear. But it's not. You were never meant to be the glue holding broken people together at the cost of your own wholeness. There is no award for self-sacrifice in relationships that drain you. There is no medal for staying in situations that dim your light. There is no crown for enduring emotional harm in the name of love. So, the smartest people, the ones who've been through enough to know the difference between guilt and growth, make a different choice. They let go, not with hatred in their hearts, but with peace in their hands. They let go because they're ready to come home to themselves. Letting go doesn't mean you forget. It doesn't mean the love wasn't real. It just means you love yourself enough now to stop bleeding for someone who never learned how to hold your heart gently. You walk away, not to punish them, but to protect the parts of you that still believe in softness, still believe in kindness, still believe in safe love. That is like letting go That is like letting go, not to punish them, but to protect the parts of you that still believe in softness, still believe in safe love. Instead of saying, let go, you say, let go. Because if you keep staying in toxic places, you'll start to doubt that safe love even exists. You'll start to harden, to shut down, to forget how your own voice sounds when it's not trying to survive. Letting go is grief, and it is also rebirth. It's a soft, steady unraveling of everything you thought you had to be to earn someone's attention. It's the end of people-pleasing, the end of begging, the end of negotiating your needs just to be tolerated. And on the other side of that letting go is you, the you who can breathe again, the you who can sleep peacefully, the you who doesn't spend your days overthinking text messages, second-guessing your worth, or bracing for emotional whiplash. The you who starts laughing again, creating again, trusting again. Not everyone else, but yourself. Because the truth is, the smartest way to deal with toxic people isn't to change them. It's to release them, to unclench your heart and trust that what's meant for you won't require you to shrink, to suffer, or to break into pieces to be loved. You let them go so you can finally come home to yourself, fully, freely, fearlessly. And that's not weakness, that's your power. So here's my gentle invitation to you today. Check in with your soul. Who are you shrinking around? Who are you constantly trying to prove yourself to? Who leaves you more confused than clear? Now ask yourself, is this love or is this survival? You don't have to burn bridges with anger. Sometimes you just walk away calmly and build a life on the other side that feels like peace. Protect your light. Guard your joy. You were never meant to live in emotional shadows. The smartest way to deal with toxic people is to stop handing them the pen and letting them write your story. You take the pen back. You become the author, and you write something brave, something whole, something true. Because you, my friend, are worth that kind of story.